everybody. I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the KICKER UnMasked studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey, everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. So, Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the KICKER UnMasked studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the KICKER UnMasked studios. Hey, everybody. From the KICKER UnMasked studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody.
Right here.
In the 90s, we created the KICKER competition group, and that was headed up by Greg Davis. The team actually came to be because of the car stereo competitions that had started in the 80s that began to grow and expand. And we had a number of competitors that liked to use KICKER product. There were actually other teams developing too. And so because we had a good foothold in that market, we decided that we would develop a competition team. That team was very, very successful. We kind of swept most of the competitions. And it was primarily because it was supported by us, and Greg Davis was very integral in that, getting the really best competitors on our team and using KICKER equipment. During that time, got Alma Gates, who was a competitor, to convert to KICKER product in her Bronco, which was the world record holder. We had a good thing going, and we had really all the top competitors on our team.
You out-rock the hard rock.
If it's too loud, you're too old.
Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday night, 7:30, right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, from KICKER's World Headquarters. We have got an incredible show for you tonight. I'm so glad you guys have tuned in, and those of you that haven't tuned in, you missed out. You better go back and watch the reruns, because this is going to be a show you don't want to miss. We had a great show last week. We had Bobby Gately on, we had Derek Williston, we had Drew Jones, and we had Scott Barber. All those guys, or Steve Barber, sorry about that, Steve. So we had all those guys on talking about speaker box building, ports, SPL, and it was a really fun show. And if you guys didn't see it, go Good old Derek decided to launch a Solo X woofer with about 12,000 watts of power, but what was really cool is it didn't burn the coil. So tune into his videos to see that. We've got a great show. If you guys are new to the show, make sure if you like it, hit like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, wake the cat, tell the neighbors, grab the squirrels, whatever you need to do, get the word out, because we want to keep doing this show and having a lot of fun and learning about Kicker and car audio. As always, we've got some great giveaways. If you go to kicker.com/UM Weekly, that's how you sign up, and we're going to run this contest till 8 o'clock when we're going to shut off the drawing point. But what we've got the usual grand prizes. Everybody's going to get a gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt. You're going to get the Kicker koozie. The third place is going to get the Kicker tumbler, which is a great little, insulated mug. Second place is going to get the EB400, so it's the weather-resistant Bluetooth earbuds. The first place is going to get the Bullfrog 100, which is a waterproof wireless Bluetooth speaker. And if you notice, things have changed quite a bit. Don't have my desk in front of me, and my God, it was so cold in this studio, I even had to grab a jacket. Look at this jacket. Isn't this jacket cool? But there's a lot of you guys out there going, I would really like to have that jacket. So I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to sweeten the pot just a little bit. This is also going to be part of the grand prize. This is courtesy of Charlie Schultz, our former director of the company, pretty much, right below Steve. Charlie was with the company for many years. He retired and knew what we were doing tonight. And he said, you know what, I'm going to send this jacket up for these guys to give away. But this is an absolutely gorgeous black satin jacket with the original Kicker logo. This thing's got to be 40 years old, maybe. I don't even know. It's probably about as old as I am. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are not a part of the Kicker Club, sign up on Facebook for Kicker Club. Thank you to our good friend Andy McGill. And right after this, Andy will be doing Living Loud with Andy. And don't forget, this is going to be a great show, so it may run a little bit longer. I know we ran quite long last week, and we've got another great giveaway. We like giving away stuff, so we're going to continue to give cool stuff away. We did a great giveaway with some stuff last week. We're going to do it again. We've got an enclosure that was built by GP Audio, which is a true spec elite enclosure. It's got an L7X12 woofer in it. This has been tested by none other than Big D, Derek Williston. He tested this woofer, and to sweeten that pot even more, Steve Irby has signed it both front and back. So we'll be giving that away. We're going to start that contest at 9:30 tonight. We're going to run that till July 10th at midnight. So don't forget to register to win that enclosure with that 12-inch Solo X woofer. And once again, it's been signed by Steve Irby and tested by the one and only Derek. He didn't put 12,000 watts to this one. He didn't burn that one up. So guys, hope you enjoy the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Just hang on with this because we could go a little bit longer, but it's going to be worth it. I promise you guys. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with my special guest. And I forgot we got someone else calling in. Donnie Babb, I think you want to talk a little bit about Slamology. What went on there? I almost forgot to drag you into this, Donnie. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm easy to forget. It's okay.
Yeah, and I get too wound up, get too excited. I mean, the guests we've got coming up, and this is going to be so much fun. So, No offense, I just get a little wound up, and I'm sure sorry I missed Slamology this year. Really wanted to go, but I just couldn't make it. So, you got to tell me what all I missed and, what everybody else missed that didn't get to go. So, what exciting things happened?
Well, you missed our 20-year anniversary, which is a huge leap for us, which was awesome. And if you look, the banner behind me, it says Happy Birthday Slamology, and we actually hung this banner up at the Friday night birthday party we had with all the custom semis and all the lights. We had the Bronco there. It was all lit up. Steve came out. We did a 360 photo together. It was an amazing evening. So that was something good about Slamology. Obviously, the Kicker booth was amazing as always. I mean, obviously, we were missing the rig, but the tent and
they made up for it.
It's super made up for it. And the Bronco stuck away, and then all the show trucks out there, and I got an opportunity to have my own vehicle in your booth as well. So I was honored for that. So thank you to everybody that let me do that. That's awesome. Well, we got a little bit of lag.
Oh, we still got you. You're still out there.
Okay, cool. I say you're coming in and out on my side.
Nope, you haven't dropped out yet, but I mean, I've seen a bunch of the videos and pictures. It really looked like it was a fantastic event. It looked like a lot of fun, and other than a little bit of moisture, I think we want to call that on Sunday. Rainology, I think was the term.
Yeah, or swampology this year.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and of course, it wasn't really forecasted for heavy rain or anything until Sunday morning. And I came in Sunday morning, and Saturday was phenomenal, unbelievable. Record numbers to the spectator gate, record number of participants. And I come in the gate Saturday morning. I woke up, ran straight to the venue, got there about 6 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's like, so what are we doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are we doing? And, well, we're having a show. It's rain or shine. And it really didn't stop much action. Obviously, as a promoter, rain costs. That's it costs your gate for sure. But the participants came out. All 4 organizations continued all of their competitions, and we finished those. We moved the award ceremony inside. We had a beautiful award ceremony, and the show was, honestly, it was a huge success. Despite a little bit of rain on Sunday.
I bet there are a lot of people doing rain dance commercials out there with all the water on the vehicles.
Yeah, some of the videos I've seen are just, I don't know, they just make me want to cry. It's kind of your worst nightmare. But we had a beautiful Saturday, so we couldn't have asked for more there. And I'm sure you've heard from the guys, the kicker booth, every inch of the venue was just packed.
So fantastic. What do you got planned for us for next year? How are we going to go above and beyond that one? You put any pencil to paper yet on that one?
Yeah, always. I'm already working on 2025, so
I figured you probably were.
Obviously, we're gonna bring back and do everything we've always done. I'm sure there'll be a few other things that are in the works that are kind of under hat right now, but we'll work on something. And every year we add something new. Our big new addition this year, we had 2 of them, was the 2-step exhaust contest, which ended up super cool, man. Those tuner guys, man, they make some noise out of those 4-cylinders. It was fun.
Yes, they do.
And then we had the Friday night party. We're gonna probably try to continue that and make it a yearly event there. And it was low volume and just a smooth, easy night, and a place that really gave an opportunity for people to get an up-close look at the semis, see them with their lights on, and a lot of the other vehicles as well. We had several other, vendors and sponsors and participants that brought their vehicles over. So it was a nice, 70-car car show, along with a live DJ playing from, he was playing from $1 million rig. So it was cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we do appreciate it, and all you do is Slamology, and thank you for being such a, promoter of the, this wonderful world we call car audio. You're just one of the, handful of people that are really dedicated to, creating this, environment for all of us bass heads and our, SQ heads to go out and enjoy our sound and get together and just talk about old times and plan bigger and better systems. So thanks again for all you do, and really look forward to seeing what we're going to do next year.
Yeah, next year is going to be a big one, and thank you guys for all your support. That's everybody support Kicker. We couldn't do Slamology without you guys, so it means the world to us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully I'll put that on my calendar, and I will not miss next year. So Thanks again. Guys, stay tuned. Right after this break, we have got an unbelievable show planned. I'm actually humbled to even be up here on the stage with the guys that are going to be up here. It's absolutely just, you got to see this and listen to this to believe it. And I wish we had a couple days to do this. We're going to try to cram this in, get as much information, have as much fun as we can in the short time we have. So I'm going to shut up, and we're going to go to commercial right now. We're going to bring these 3 guys out. So Ernie, take it away.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Music is my passion, my livelihood, and it's in my DNA. My pals at Kicker Marine Audio gave me a chance to take the music, what I love and listen to, at home, on stage, and in the car, onto the water. Hi, this is Jason Bonham, and I want to say a big thank you to my friends at Kicker Audio for inspiring the songs and the stories behind the music that inspires America. Go overboard! This is your time.
We're back, guys. As I told you, we've got 3 extremely distinguished guests up here that I'm just literally honored to be call these guys friends of mine and to have worked with them, and actually to have all three of these guys up here on stage. Just in case you don't know who these guys are, we're going to do a little introduction. I'm going to have these guys answer a couple questions, and then we're going to get right in the heart of this, which is all about the Kicker competition group, how it got started, where it's gone, where it's been, and where it's going. So guys, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Gary Biggs, probably one of the most talented car builders out there today. You've seen his work, you've seen his Regal. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate you coming out. Gary, how did you get started in car audio? I mean, this is one of the questions I love asking guests.
I guess my very first experience, I had purchased a system for my car. It was a Mustang. And after about a 2 or 3 day period, one of the door speakers blew up. So I went back to the shop that I had do the original install. They were busy. But they handed me a screwdriver and said, go out there and take that thing out and we'll get you a new one.
That's customer service.
So I went out, I pulled that speaker out, and I thought, man, this ain't too tough. And so they basically took one of their potential best customers off the street, because then I became an installer after that.
Yeah, but you became an avid consumer of car audio electronics. So that is awesome. So what are you doing now? What is your role in the car audio world as we speak?
Right now I work for Momentum Marketing. We're a sales rep team. I handle Arkansas, Oklahoma, a little bit of North Texas and West Texas. And I sell products to a lot of the stereo shops in the territory.
And you can tell us what brands.
Kenwood, Rockford Fosgate, Audison, Hertz, Audio Vox, all the DI products, Boss Audio, Soundskins, a lot of great brands.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good names in there. So your favorite car audio system you've ever owned?
Oh, that I've ever owned. I've really loved and enjoyed all the different
I know, it's like
versions.
Picking your favorite children,
Yeah, I've had so many different versions of systems in my cars, and every time I felt like they got better, and because I learned from the system before, having become friends with Mark years ago and Greg years ago, and other guys in the industry, always learning and trying to figure out how to make it better. It's really hard to say which version I like the best. Really liked them all.
I got people here trying to make me look good, so that is awesome. And obviously, to your immediate left, we have none other than Mark Eldridge. Mark, you've been around this industry for a very long time, and I kind of know the backstory where you got started,
right.
After years of working with you guys. And kind of tell us what got you into car audio.
Bought a 74 Chevy Blazer when I was 16, and it had an AM radio, and that wasn't good enough. So that
obviously
came out with a pair of Pioneer dual cones. I put in boxes in the back and TSM2 tweeters up on top of the dash, and an underdash 8-track tape player. And that's where I got started.
Do you want to tell these guys what an 8-track is? Some of these guys probably don't even know what an 8-track is. We're definitely dipping back in time.
Right. But that's where I got started. It was all about cars and music and putting them together. And that's why we're here.
Oh yeah, it's a passion, it's a career, and we can actually make money doing it. We're never going to get totally rich doing it, but we're rich enough in experiences and just the joy of listening to music the way it was supposed to be.
The passion of making a car sound good.
So, and where is this whole path taking you? What are you doing now?
Oh,
tell these guys a little bit about what you do and what your school is.
I'm doing several things. I'm ADD, so I have to stay busy. I am a rep for team sales, and we represent JL Audio and Diamond Audio and CompuStar and several other brands, Powerbase, and we sell in the 4 states regionally. I teach classes myself on how to make cars sound good. Mobile soundstage engineering. I do those classes about 4 times a year.
That's not enough. You need to do some more. So,
if I could fill the classes up, I would do more. I run sound at my church, and I do some consulting work on the side, and I play drums.
So that is awesome. So, and obviously, to your immediate left, the one and only, Greg Davis. Greg, I remember meeting you the day I started with the company back in 1996.
I think I remember when we moved you in.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, you guys probably moved before I even got here, but yep, it wasn't far away.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm kind of an old timer in this building. This is just a great thing to be back here. I haven't been back in a while. Thanks for having us, by the way.
Oh, it is our honor.
Thanks to Steve and everybody for having us and talking about, what we did a lot of years ago. To think that it's made an impact and it's lasting and we're talking about it 20, 25 years later, that's great. So just thanks for having us. I wanted to say that. So.
Well, great. So what year was it you started with KICKER?
I started with KICKER in 1988.
Wow.
So plenty of the viewers probably weren't born yet.
Yeah, probably more than a few.
Yeah, but there's been a few systems, tweaked on between that time and today. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, we were in the Quonset hut, if anybody saw the 50th anniversary one. And I think I was the second person hired on the marketing and sales side. But of course, we did everything. We worked on building product, we sold stuff, we traveled all over, we trained, we did everything. And it was just an incredible learning experience. And I just have such fond memories of it. I probably won't shut up about that the whole time we're here.
Obviously a good memories or you wouldn't be here tonight, that's for sure. So 88 was when you started? Mark?
I moved over here in 98.
Gary?
Started.
2000.
2000.
A lot of history with you guys, and it's been such an honor to have worked with you guys, and it's just, it's unreal to be sitting here with these guys again after so many years and talking about what we're talking about, and, with a company that's gone just, we've had our growing pains, but just the progression has just been amazing, and, all thanks to Steve Irby. Seeing it through and giving us the ability to do all this, and, basically trusting us to do what we want to do and just, guiding us a little bit here and there and hold us back a little bit on a few things.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So that is really cool, but what we really want to talk about is the KICKER competition group. That is something that, I didn't know a lot about when I started, but, obviously working in the install bay when I started, we did installs, we entered the tech, and we did trainings. We did all three, and now we got a different department for each one of those. But so I got to meet you guys and work with the competition group. But I don't really know a lot of the history. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there don't know the history. And Greg, you were involved from pretty much day one, or even before day one, with how this whole thing got started and why. What brought this whole idea about a competition group? Back then, who competed?
That's
car audio.
Crazy. I don't want to get too long-winded about it, but. The company was young and growing, and somewhere around that time, a couple years after I was hired, I got nominated and elected to an organization called NACA, which was the predecessor to IASCA. And so I was on the board of NACA, and then that turned into IASCA, and I was on the board of IASCA for many years, and was had a rules and ethics for a while, a head judge, worked really hard on the rule books and the DIS. Mark and I worked on the DIS along with some of our other friends. And so as a matter of fact, trivia note, the 96 version, which a lot of people seem to be fond of, the cover of it is a road right down here. So a little bit of trivia for you. But anyway, that's kind of the genesis of the seed got planted. So I was on the board, but we weren't really actively competing. And it was an interesting time in the company history because we were on the cusp of launching some new products, especially amplifiers. We had been a speaker company for quite a while and done really, really well, especially with subs and closed systems. And so we wanted to expand and get involved in, a broader array of products and look what it's evolved to now. So I saw that as a good way to branch out, to get publicity for our products, for our dealers to get their hands on them and get comfortable with them, and to prove that they could deliver. And so after going to contest and doing that for a while, I wrote a proposal along with two of my colleagues, Mr. Steve Boothier and Mr. Jay Tonsfeld. We put our heads together and we wrote a proposal on creating the competition group. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't just a proposal. We have a written plan, a very evolved written plan. There's a copy of it here somewhere. But so we submitted this plan to Steve and didn't hear anything. So kept on doing our jobs, and hey, everything was good. And that's probably 6 months later or something. I get a call. Hey, Steve wants to see you in his office. I'm thinking,
called into the principal's office. Been there.
Yeah. So I rock in, and he goes, "Hey, congratulations." Like, what? And he said, "You got a promotion." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "You don't remember?" And I said, "Oh, that?" And so at that point, Steve made a huge commitment for the company to invest an amazing amount of resources for us to go front and center with competition. And how we got the rest of the story, can go on from there. But that's the genesis of it, without being too long-winded about the whole thing.
So that's how it all got started.
Yeah, and it was from day one. It was designed to be a system and a team. Everything was scripted from the time we left the building to go to shows, what we were doing every hour of the day, what our focuses were, how we were going to tune cars, and it was executed a lot like a racing team. We had 2 crates of backup stock in case we ever had failures, which was incredibly rare, I'm happy to say. And we had a great team of people. We had yourself. We conned you into coming to some shows. Yeah. Kip, I'm sure he's probably listening somewhere. Kip came out to some shows. Of course, Aaron and Jeremy came to some shows too. And former employee Jay Burton was really helpful too.
Oh yeah, Jay's back in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, good.
And then I can't forget, I recruited 2 of our close friends, Dr. Douglas Winker. He is professor now.
He's amazing.
Of acoustics, right? And our good friend Robert Abels to help us tune cars, because eventually we had so many cars that, one guy couldn't do it all. And then I ended up conning these 2 guys to come to the company and come to work. It took a little while. So anyway, it was a plan. It was, the genesis of it was make it a racing team. And, honestly, we really started with our hands tied behind our backs because nobody knew who we were, what we did, how good our stuff was. Some cases, there were prototype products used for development of for R&D, And so that was part of the whole reason for doing it, is we wanted to be able to help develop products, help come up with new ideas for products, test products, and then we also wanted to make it a rallying cry for our dealers, to be really secure with the brand and know and use the rest of the products we were coming out with. So all those things molded together, and Steve, as I said, made the commitment, and the rest is definitely history 25 years later.
Well, and crazy history it's been. So do you remember who were the first members?
Well,
and how did you get the members? How did you find these people, and what drew you to them, and who said, okay, Greg?
Yeah,
I'll do that.
That's a really interesting question. Actually, before we officially started the group in 96, 94 and 95, I was going to shows, and I would just walk the lanes, meet people, see what people were doing. That's how I met this guy. And I said, hey, you ought to consider using our stuff. And so it was personal interaction, getting in the lanes, being a judge, ground level. That was all ground level, and having an eye for talent, I think, And so that's how I ended up meeting Mr. Biggs over here. It's hard for most people that know him to know he used to be painfully shy.
No.
It's true. So
painful even.
Yeah. So and as a matter of fact, the shop that he worked at, Car Toys in Tulsa, with our old friend Rob Rice, it was, it's an hour down the road. So it was a great synergy to be able to come up with a product or get an idea for a system design, put it in the car, and be able to be hands-on in an hour, you know. So to answer your question, it was really just ground level to recruit people. And so the first 2 years before we were doing it, that's how we evolved and got a couple of competitors on board. 96, when we officially launched it, we specifically had 1 or 2 competitors per power class at that point, and we would go in as a team. And we went in as a team. And everybody helped everybody. There was a great knowledge share, great camaraderie, and a lot of work. A lot of work.
But it was fun. I remember, getting together with the guys in the bays and working on cars and being at the events and all hanging out. It just it developed a huge family bond. If nothing else.
It was fun, and it was very rewarding because we were helping build the company and build reputation for the company, I think, and. So while we were doing things that we loved, somewhat selfishly, because that's what we've done our whole lives, you know. I started building speakers when I was in grade school and high school, and so we got to do that, and then build a company, you know, legacy to some extent, doing it and having fun, you know, and met a lot of great people along the way, and a lot of great people that were involved on the team throughout the years. And a lot of great dealers that supported us too.
So, Mark, you were competing before all this happened.
Yes.
And who were you branding for? And what was your vehicle back then?
It was a Toyota 4Runner, 1987 Toyota 4Runner.
Sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, you think? I'd had it for a long time, and that was really my learning laboratory, if you will. Went through a lot of different brands of product. And I met Greg at the Eastern Regional in Louisville in '93.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you were judging there.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and we met there. And, one thing led to another. We just kept in touch. And then in '94, I think we saw each other again in Dallas or something. And I was running, I think, Alpine amps and, of course, an Alpine 7909 head unit and all that stuff.
And how many of those do you have now?
None.
Really?
I sold them all.
Wow.
They don't repair them anymore.
Well,
so, I found somebody to buy them. But no, it was a great head unit. But I was talking to Greg, and we just hit it off. He said, hey, man, you want to run some KICKER gear in your vehicle? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so I took the amplifiers, had 5 of them across the back of the 4Runner. Of course, they had to be liquid cooled because, that was a thing for me to do. So that took a while to make the heat sinks and get them done.
One of the things, and I think we got one of those right back here.
Yeah, these are the next version. These are the secondary version. But they were liquid cooled, had the competition 12s in the back and the horns up front. And, barely got it done in '94 before finals. That was just, I went to finals and didn't do as well as I wanted. But then start the next year in '95, it was a system, and working with Greg and competing in the expert class that year. That was the first year that the expert class was a real competition class. Chad Clodner was there, Eric Stevens, myself, Mike Mineo, Tim Bailey, a bunch of guys that were really wanting to push that envelope. And I competed against Chad at, I think, every single event all year. And he would win, and I would win, and he would win, and it'd go back and forth.
Just lob the volley back and forth.
And back and forth. And then at '95 finals, Chad won the SQ class, and I won the SQ Plus class. That was my first world championship in car audio.
Now, that kind of intrigued me. Is it SQ and SQ Plus? So
SQ,
2 different classes. What was the difference?
SQ was sound quality, installation, and RTA combined. Okay, and then SQ Plus added in an SPL score.
So both.
Right.
So
because there were competitors that didn't want to do SPL at all, and then some that wanted to have that included. So IASCA was trying to
promote
both. Yeah.
I think that was another area that Corey Heimel did very well in.
Right, he did very well. Yeah, there were some guys. Mark Facuda was the epitome of that.
Oh yeah.
In the early '90s.
Yeah, with the little yellow blazer.
He wiped everybody.
He's the reason that Alma got into this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's a long story.
Yeah, we don't want to get into that, but yeah. For better or for worse.
He did not intend for that to happen, but
Right.
it did, and it brought Alma to the table. So,
and who knows where we'd be without her? You know,
God works in strange ways.
It's amazing the little fingers of the past that all end up right here, and it's mind-boggling to actually have to try to map that all out.
Right. So 95, competed there. In 96, 97, I was not with KCG because working for Autosound 2000.
Right.
And MTX had hired us to build their Thunder Force. And we did that for 2 years.
And what were you doing for Autosound 2000?
I was doing consulting. I was building their aperiodic membranes. I was tuning cars. And then the Thunder Force was kind of parallel to the competition group in that both of them started in 96, and it was about the same thing, promoting the brand and competing. And so I was there because I worked for Autosound 2000. That was my job. Did that for 2 years. We did really well. KCG did really well. And then in 1998, I came to work for Kicker directly. So, and from there on, there we went.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Gary, was competition group the first competition group you were involved in, or had you been competing before this?
No, I had been competing, and in my car I was using all Orion gear. A few years before coming to work in Tulsa at Car Toys, I worked at a shop down in Wichita Falls, Texas Sound Decisions, and I was building my car and had all Orion product in it, and I actually came up to Tulsa for a big regional event that was actually being held by Car Toys, and got to the hotel about 3:30 that night and had a 6 o'clock wake up. And I wake up and I look out the door and my whole rig is gone. The car's gone, the trailer's gone, brand new truck's gone. Truck didn't even have tags on it yet. So later
welcome to Tulsa.
Yeah, welcome to Tulsa. So a little bit, but I had all Orion product in the car. So, different things took place, and the guys at Orion, they caught wind of it, and they were like, man, if you rebuild your car, you get another car, whatever you do, give us the list of what you want. It's yours. I didn't even know there was such thing as sponsorship or anything, at that time. So through the course of traveling back and forth to Tulsa for court dates, because they actually caught the guys that stole and stripped my car, I actually became friends with Rob Rice, the owner of Car Toys, and he offered me a job. And so I took it, and so then immediately I was ready to start on my car, so that's what I did. I reached out, got all Orion product for the car, and then about the time I was tightening the last couple screws, Davis here talks me into
tear it all out
and put Kicker in. So it's really his fault that I got in this habit of never getting the car done, building it before the season's over, rebuilding it.
To Sharon, his wife, it's not true.
I think we all know that. It's never done. I mean,
so I competed with Orion, placed at finals with it, got hooked up with Greg, and actually at that time we kind of converted all of boys over to Kicker. My car, Rob Rice's car, he had the Sony ES system in it. One of the other guys, the shop manager, Jeff Sanders, Don's little Porsche. Yep. Pretty much every car, every installer salesman at our store kind of came on board with Kicker.
And Jeff, when you first started, he was doing install stuff too, and he was a talented fabricator.
Very good.
Yeah. So that was a great synergy, just being able to go there and work with those guys and just be hands-on all the time. I mean, it's a famous saying of how do you really get good at something, and people talk about the 10,000 hours, and I think really that's a big part of succeeding at anything that you're really passionate about is putting the time in. And let me tell you, we put the time in. I don't know how many thousands of hours we spent building and tuning cars, and it was just a great synergy, as I said before, having Car Toys close. And we use it as a hub. We bring cars in from all across the country, and we'd have them in for a few days, put a hard tune on it. Gary'd go through installs, that kind of thing, and it was just a great synergy, a great teamwork kind of thing, and it was so convenient because they're an hour away.
And it's definitely not an 8 to 5 thing. I mean, Mark, I remember your schedule when we were working together, and same thing with Gary.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be in there, you'd do your normal 8 to 5, you would go home, have dinner, and see the family for a little bit, come back at 10 o'clock and work till 3, 4 in the morning or later, sometimes all night.
And and when that started in the Bay, there was no air conditioning.
No,
I remember.
You were there, yeah. And so we'd be working late, and Gary he started in 2000. He was driving from Tulsa into Stillwater every day and back and forth.
Yeah.
And we'd be there, who knows, eating Snickers bars and drinking Starbucks.
That's kind of an inside joke, yeah.
Yeah, but
it was like, where else, even though we all had families and such, I mean, it's like, that's where we wanted to be.
Right.
That's what we wanted to do.
And we had the support.
Yeah, they knew what we wanted to do, and they supported us.
Yeah, but looking back on those days, man, you had to put in that kind of time to go to finals. When you're going to finals and you have 435 sound quality competition cars at finals. 14 classes, 25 to 35 cars in every class. And you want to just get a top 5 and get on the stage to get a trophy. I mean, you had to put in the time. It was not easy because you had to do SPL, RTA, install, and sound until they dropped the SPL part out.
Yeah. But getting a top 5 was almost like winning.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
totally.
Several years when I was first competing, I mean, I remember getting a 5th, and then the next year a 5th, and then the next year like a 4th, and then a 3rd. I mean, I competed for several years before I ever won. But in all honesty, that 5th place, I mean, I went home just as if I won it. So yeah, it's just like anything, any profession. It just takes lots of hours to perfect your craft, and because you're never really done. You're never really done.
You're never done, and nobody did it by themselves. I mean, we'd put in the time. I would put in the time on the 4Runner. Gary's on his Regal, but there's no way that we could have single-handedly built one of our vehicles, and you've built I don't know how many vehicles at the time, but it was a team. I mean, you'd work in your garage, you'd get your stuff done, and then you'd show up at the show with the competition group and in the tweak and tune, and you'd have 12 or 14 or however many cars there, and you just had little army ants running all over the place, making sure stuff was right, making sure it was clean, making sure it was tuned right, looking at the install to make sure everything is perfect, practicing your presentation. I mean,
we'd practice.
It was
our
a
presentation
NASCAR team, if you will.
With each other.
I mean, a lot of people probably don't even know that there was a presentation you had to give. It's not like they just pull up the lane and let the judges go and
you're done. You're timed. We would practice it with each other, and in fact, we'd have scheduled judging slots. And I remember one time we were in Kansas City. I think it was USAC finals, and I was over helping another guy. It wasn't even one of our competitors, somebody on our team. I was helping him replace a speaker or something, and I was late getting back to my judging time, and I got deducted. I think it was 5 or 7 points or something for missing my time. So,
but you were helping someone.
But I was helping somebody, and and I was a little bit cocky or whatever. I was like, I can give anybody 5 points or whatever, but we did. We helped it really, and that's true with everybody in the lanes, not just our group. I can recall many times somebody else helping me with, I needed this or I needed that, or I remember one time somebody saying, hey, I noticed you got, something about my fuses or whatever, and he's like, what are those fuses? And I said, well, that's for this is for the radio, this is for that. And he's like, why do you have a 30 amp fuse on your radio? You're going to get deducted points for that. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. So, man, he runs over. He's done with his judging. He pulls fuse out of his car and comes over and loans it to me, and I stick it in. So, you know, it was things were really detailed, and it was I mean, my best friends in the world, literally, all have. There's a common tie is audio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and talking about help, you know, I could not have done what I did the early days without Robert and Doug. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, everybody on KCG, but man, you don't talk about polishing aluminum, Robert.
Oh yeah,
guy. You know? And if you needed a Snickers bar, he had it.
That's right.
You know,
you can count on him.
But helping the lanes, yeah, talking about that. 95 finals, I was at USEC finals, and I was getting ready to run through, and I was listening to the system, and the right tweeter was out. And I was like, oh no, and I pulled it out, and one of the wires had snapped loose. And I'm sitting there scrambling. I had like 30 minutes before I'd go through the lanes, and Chad Clodner's in my class. And he walks by and says, hey man, what are you doing? I said, dude, I'm gonna choke because my tweeter's bad. And he said, what's wrong? I said, the solder broke. He said, hang on. He went and got his soldering iron, came back and helped me solder it, helped me reinstall it so I could go compete. And that's what it was. It was, regardless of what class you're in, you helped people out. And it went across most of the teams that way.
It did.
It was really cool.
It did. I think we did some things that were really unique. And one memory, you know, you're talking about supporting. We were at finals. We had two of the top cars in the 601 class. It was Rob's car. And
what were some of the classes, just out of curiosity?
Well, 0 to 150.
151 to 3.
151 to 3, 301 to 6.
And then 601 and up.
601 and up. And so we had really the two top cars, I think, humbly. We had Rob's car and Earl's car. And Earl had just come on the team.
Earl Wills.
Yeah,
Earl Wills.
And so he was nervous. He didn't know what we did and how we did things. He was in the lanes, 2 cars away from being judged for sound quality. And he sent one of his guys over, well, we were there. I can't really remember how the fire started. Not fire, but
fire.
He said, guys, we got an amp out. And the first thing is like, are you sure? You know, really?
Like now?
Well, it was one of the only, there's maybe 2 times that I can really think of amp failures all those years, seriously. And that was one of them. And so Jeff Smith, who I didn't mention before, was very helpful. Mm-hmm. And Jeff, we had practiced this before we left Stillwater. We had spare parts for an amplifier. We had heat sinks, we had the board, we had all of the tie-down things for the board and the insulators, and we field dressed the amplifier behind the trunk of his car right before the judges got in the car, winged it, set the gains, let him judge it. He wins.
Nice.
You know, those kind of things, it's like, you remember that, and you're like, how do we do that?
Right. But it happened more often.
It did, you know, it did. And, you know, it was just great teamwork and really being prepared and having the support on the factory side from Steve and, you know,
well, and having people on the team with the knowledge to be able to pull that off.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the keys,
obviously.
I think. The desire, but surrounding yourself with the people that could do that kind of stuff. You know, it was a knowledge base on the KCG, boy, unlike anywhere else I'd ever been in competition stuff. You know,
there were some tough guys out there, you know, and as I mentioned earlier, we got into it really late in the game. So can I tell you a quick story about the first contest that we went to as KCG? It's Perry, Georgia, and most of the competitors know that was really the big show. Maybe it was more important than finals in some way, or as important.
It was.
Yeah. And it was all out. And so we decided to go to this, and we took a handful of cars. Pretty sure Frank Rougeau was part of that. Gary, Rob Rice. I can't remember who else might have been there. A handful of cars. So we go in, the cars are all prepped. We spent tons of time on them, and we think everything's right. And you know, I had heard a lot of our competitors' cars, you know, and I would listen to other people's cars and going, man, we can do this. We can be really competitive. I know we can. And so we went in, no stickers, didn't tell anybody who was who or what we were doing or anything else. And when the judging was done, we had these Klingon stickers that we put on the windows telling people that it was a Kicker car. Because honestly, a lot of the big-time competitors were using pretty exotic, sometimes European stuff and spending a lot of money. And honestly, we just wanted to go into it incognito and not be discriminated against, because
prejudged.
We were Kicker guys and they didn't know how good our stuff was. So we waited till after the judging, and then we put stickers on the car, and then the results came out, and it was ridiculous. I think Gary won by 60 points, Rob 20 or 30. And you know, these guys that had dominated for years were walking around going, you know, I remember the guy Gary competed against. I mean, I'm not going to name his name. He was a great guy. But, you know, I remember him getting out of his car and then seeing the results. He goes, who is that? Where did that guy come from? Who is that guy? And I said, let me introduce you to Mr. Gary Biggs. And you know,
that's know this name from now on.
Yeah, that's how it started. You know, it's like we had to go into it just stealth, because people, I don't think they would have taken us seriously.
And, you know, it's sad, but you still see a lot of that on, you know, Facebook pages and, you know, people the haters are going to hate, but.
Yeah, the internet is a whole other realm with that kind of thing. We don't get into all that. But, you know, so when we started building that level of success, people saw how the team was run and organized. And, you know, at one point, we were renting car carriers and taking 6 or 8 cars into a show across the country and showing up and unloading all of our cars off of a car carrier. Nobody was doing that.
Yeah, one time, you know, went out to Boise.
Yeah,
I didn't even go. I think Jeff, you mentioned Jeff earlier. Yeah. He piloted my car.
That's right. So those kind of things, and you know, we were very systematic in the process. You know, we had a reference system set up in the tweak and tune area. We had a pair of Stax electrostatics headphones. We had Genelec monitors. And so if we had a question about, you know, source material or what we were hearing or not hearing, or needed to take a break and listen to something else, we would go back and get our reference right, take a break, do that, come back, you know. And we had a methodology in how we tuned cars. And towards the end of it, it got to the point where we had sheets where we would individually go into the cars, listen to them independently, not talking to one another, and then get around the table and everybody put their sheet down, and we would compare notes about, okay, what did you hear? What do we need to change? What do we need to do at this point? And usually it's very little, because we were usually pretty prepared. Mm-hmm. Except for one year, a week before the show, Gary had this motor torn apart on the bench. We won't go into that right now.
A lot of work happened in a short period of time.
And that happened more often than not.
Yeah, it was very systematic. So we couldn't just, you know, when you're tuning that many cars for that long a time, and 2 or 3 days at a time, I mean, you know, you have to take breaks. You have to, one of the hardest things in tuning cars is knowing when to quit.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely.
And it's kind of the same of making a record, you know, you got to quit sometimes, you know. And so it was important to do that, feed off of each other, share that knowledge, and be systematic about it. If there's any point that, you know, I could ever stress with competition or anything that you do like this in life, is having a plan and being really systematic about how you approach it. And that was a difference maker.
Keeps it predictable.
Yeah. Well, and don't make a decision on one opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, because too often competitors will have somebody listen to it and they go, oh, well, it does this, but at 400 hertz, it's doing this. So they go and change it. And then somebody else says, well, over here, it's doing this. And they make all these changes. But maybe that's not what the problem is.
Right.
That's why when Greg says you get everybody to listen to the same system, and then you compare notes, and if you have a common thread amongst 2 or 3 people, then maybe you address it. But
you guys have both brought up something that, you know, a lot of the viewers out there probably never even considered, and that's a reference system.
Yep.
I mean,
Right.
You don't see that. I mean, I don't. I mean, going out to competitions, and you don't see that at all. Hardly. I mean, at all anymore. Period.
That is.
But tell them what it is.
That is hands down the most important thing you can have if you're going to make a car sound good. You have to have a reference with which to compare the car. And you need to go to live music. Please go to live music. Enjoy the live music. That's what this is all about. Go listen to live music, but then have a reference system. If it's a pair of the Genelec monitors that I bought in '98 and been using forever
in your office.
It's one of my. I have 4 reference systems now, and they present differently. But you have to have a reference to say, okay, this is the recording, here's the center image, here's the guitar, here's the drum set, here's the bass player, here's the backup singers. And you sit down in the reference system and you listen to where everything is, close your eyes and pinpoint everything, listen to the tonal aspects, then get in the car and try to make it sound like that, okay? There is no car ever with an audio system that should be considered a reference. There are some cars that are better than others. None of them are as good as a really good reference system. It's just the way it is.
That brings me up to something that just happened to me 3 or 4 days ago. I was on one of those rabbit hole internet search things that you do late at night.
Oh, yeah.
And I ran across some home theater forum. I'm not really a home theater guy. I'm a 2-channel audio guy. And so I thought, I'm going to check this out, see what's going on. And so I was reading through some of the forums and threads, and I think it might even been a moderator. And I read this. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm surprised I didn't wake the house up doing it, but I just burst out laughing. And what I saw in print for the first time ever is we're going to be able to make home theater just like car audio, because those guys can control where they place things. And we're going to be able to do that. Oh my God, I thought I was just going to die. I mean, because home theater doesn't have the acoustical, speed bumps and moguls that you have in a car,
You sit in the middle of the home
rattling panels and glass and,
And some guy next to you won't shut up and,
Yeah. And so I just thought, man, the tables have turned. The tables have turned.
That's funny.
So I got a kick out of that.
That's funny.
That is. It's so interesting you say that, and we were talking about the reference systems, and if you guys listen to music, really sit down and listen to music, you'll find that the recordings are so different that if you base your whole tune off one recording, I can't tell you how many recordings I've been listening to. It's like, that center image is off in the recording because you listen to one is good and it's dead center. So you got to have some different things to compare to, and you have to know what you're listening to. If you listen to a recording that's got the image off to one side, then you tune your car with that in the middle, it's going to throw everything else off.
You have to have good recordings. The music we all enjoy listening to might not be the best choice for tuning. Don't want to get too deep into it, but you need good quality recordings. If you have a recording that sounds this good, you have a potential to make a car sound that good. But if your recording is only this good, you're never going to get the car to sound this good with that recording. You have to choose recordings, and recording becomes a tool. It's a tool to help you make the car sound good.
Yeah, and you really have to know the producer and how things were done, because they're having produced an album before, played on records, and as my old friend Steve Uthier said, I know what a kick drum sounds like because I stood next to one for 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what you can do when you're in the recording process. There's all kinds of tools. Obviously, equalization, compression, things happen in the mastering process. And to know, it's really good to know. And as Mark said, it is a tool to really know your source material. And especially if you get something that's done, with like a two mic array Bolemian setup, where it's live, and you're hearing the room as well as the instruments. That's an incredible thing. That's another tool you can have in your chest, is to know the recordings. Not just have great recordings, but to know them.
And you'll end up with multiple recordings. I've got, at this point, I've got 140 tracks that I know absolutely inside out. I don't use all of them all the time. If I'm tuning a system, it might be 8 or 10 or maybe 15 tracks, but I listen to it and I go, oh, I need to use this track to do this, because they've become tools.
Yeah.
But you need to have multiple tracks. It's not just one or two.
Right.
And like the competition CDs, they're good for analysis. Some of them work pretty well for tuning, but you need to step outside of that.
Yeah.
And we can get deeper into recordings later on.
Yeah.
But, if you have questions, ask.
Especially when you start talking compression and
Yep.
you know, like the MP3s, we won't even go there. But you know, back to, you know, listening to music and, you know, testing, have a reference system. I will never forget when I was like 17 or 18, working retail at a little store in Omaha, Nebraska. I was living with my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and he was one of those really high-end audio guys. I mean, you know, tube amplifiers and, you know, just unbelievable setup. He built and designed his own tube amplifiers, but he had a set of Magnaplanar Timpani 3Bs, which were electrostatic. They're 4 panels, 4 foot wide, 7 foot tall, a 3-way electrostatic. I mean, it was a very serious system. But I remember we pulled a gas line. It was an older house, you know, in Omaha, Nebraska. We pulled a gas line out of the wall, and he got so excited to hear how it changed the acoustics of the audio system. So we go up, and he shuts off all the heating and air conditioning because you couldn't have any air currents moving in the room because that would disturb the sound. And I remember he played something, he's like, well, did you hear how well that saxophone is reproduced in the lower left quadrant? It's like, no, Jim. Did you hear how good that sounded? I realized some of those people, they've lost the whole point of enjoying music. They listen to equipment.
That's true.
Example. The Forerunner, when I got done with it with the horns and then moved to the tannoys and stuff, there was a period in late 90s, early 2000s where I had become so analytical about car audio and making it pinpoint precise and doing all this, kind of what a lot of guys are doing now. They're trying to put this little bitty sound stage with everything perfect in it, and they lose sight of the music. And there were several years, and I hate to say this, I never attended a live performance for several years. And I look back at that and think, what was I doing?
And during that time, I'm thinking, Mark,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Well, you didn't go either.
Come on, we're going to a concert and drink some beer.
And at some point there was an awakening where I was like, no, this is just, you know, I was so worried about putting points on the score sheet that it became that. And then I was like, no, it's about the music. You know, the points on the score sheet's one thing. But if it doesn't sound great, if it's not a stage that's bigger than the car and deeper and taller and everything's placed and proportional, if it's not fun to listen to, what's the point?
That's why we got into this. You know, it's gotta sound good. I mean, the technical stuff, you know, we can get into that at some point, but fundamentally a car has to be entertaining. You know, you have to want to get in it and listen to it, because a few people think that we spend more time listening to our cars than we do our home systems most of the time now.
That's not,
And you got to want to get in it and want to turn that knob on and hear it.
Well, I remember, you know, when I first, you know, got into it, you know, car audio and such, and listening to, you know, some Queen, listening to some AC/DC, listening to Jackal and some of that, and just how much fun it was. Listening to the system as loud as I could listen to it. And even now, those are still some of my favorite tracks to listen to, because it kind of takes me back to some of the best of times. And who knows how many hours and hours and hours I've listened to some of those tracks. So when you say, you know, you got to expand beyond the competition disc, I mean, it is about enjoying your system and having fun. And I think everybody that's competed on a serious level has probably gone through spells where the only thing they listened to in that car was the competition disc. And there's not a whole lot of coolness there. There's not a lot of fun.
No
there.
offense to those discs.
Let's be honest. No offense,
absolutely.
but you know, the audio system. I mean, my wife can tell you, my kids can tell you. I hear a song and I know what year it came out. I know what I was doing,
Yeah.
who I was hanging out with, et cetera, maybe what girlfriend I had at the time or whatever. But, I really relate life to music. And that's why I got into it at an early age and have stayed in the audio business all this time.
Yeah. And we made it sound good for both seats.
2 seats.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
now we're going to somewhere else I want to bring up. The whole one seat versus 2 seat. I mean, we just opened up a big room to walk into.
Well, not really.
No.
If you think about it, originally I asked a USAC, everybody had things set up to listen from both front seats. And if you think about it, when do you go to a concert by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, you might sit in your living room with your reference system by yourself, but if I go to music, if we're going to a concert, I want us both to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with the signal processors we have now and some of the stuff coming out, we'll talk about this in a little bit, for 2 seat, you're going to be able to make the car sound really good from both seats. It was a challenge back then. And the guys that could really pull it off, it was, because you can't delay one side relative to the other, because then you're sacrificing. And we were really good, not just KCG, but competitors as a whole were really good at making cars sound good from both seats. It was tough.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be candid with you. I've really lost interest in going. I've been asked to judge and been asked to tune cars. I get the call sometimes, and not being able to do both seats. It's like fishing and having 10 poles in the water. It's just not. I just don't think it's real life, really. And the challenge just wasn't there for me. Whether I'm listening or judging or designing or tuning a system, it's gotta sound good from both seats. It really does. And so that's something I think's been missing for a while. And some of the things we've been talking about, it could happen again.
And looking at it, yes, tuning a car to sound good from one seat is almost always going to sound better than a 2-seat system, because with 2-seat, you can't delay one side relative to the other. You have to have equal delay. So you're sacrificing a little bit there. And yes, a 1-seat tune can sound better. But 1 seat is pretty easy to make it sound its ideal. I mean, you still have to have proper speaker placement.
By comparison, yeah.
You can't just use delay and all-pass filters and those things to optimize something. You still have to have the speakers in the right location installed the right way to present, because once the sound leaves the speaker, it turns from an electrical to a mechanical signal. You're at the mercy of the acoustical interior of the listening area. And now, a lot of people ask me about 2-seat. Every time I teach a class, we talk about 2-seat because it is a challenge. Everybody hang on, Riven is coming out with a 2-seat up mixer. It's a 3-channel left, center, right up mixer. Todd Luliak is creating this. And we're going to see a resurgence in really good sounding 2-seat cars.
This is going to be exciting.
It's not live, but when he demoed that system for me, I was smiling ear to ear. I've got one of them in my car. We use it as a demo in the classes I teach. It is uncannily good. So we're going to see that coming out. Enough on that.
Anything that gets people engaged in, making it work from both sides, I think is worthwhile.
My job with the company is a trainer, to train our dealers, to sell the products and, sell them right, install them right, and get the right mix of gear. But one of the things I stress to all the dealers, and I'll ask them flat out, said, what do you sell in the store? Oh, we sell car audio, we sell JL, we sell Kicker. It's like, no, you don't. You sell emotion. I mean, the electronics are basically, that's how the emotion's conveyed, but you're selling emotion pure and simple. And if it's not fun, it's not exciting, it doesn't sound right, you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to spend the money on it, and surely not going to be that excited, to continue to do that. So that's, to me, what's really exciting about car audio is the fact that, the whole mission of car audio is make the car disappear.
If you can pull that off, that's an amazing thing. And a lot of factory systems sound really good.
Yeah, they're getting a lot better, unfortunately, but
and
they are.
Our dealers and competitors are taking that system that sounds really good from 2 seats, stripping it out and making it a 1-seat tune, that nobody from the right seat can enjoy. It's
a passenger screw, though.
Yeah, well, and that's the attitude.
That was the attitude,
and I get that at some
I drive the car, I'm paying for it, I want it to sound good for me.
Yeah, the ultimate, to me, and the ultimate competition format would be install, sound quality for 1 seat, sound quality for 2 seat, RTA, and SPL. You take all 5 of those, and you have to do all 5 of them well to win.
Yeah.
That would be the ultimate.
Yep.
So in the IASCA days, going back to competitions, what were some of the areas that they judged? I mean, it obviously just wasn't sound. I mean, there's several aspects, like you say, but what specifically were judges looking for, and how would you set yourself apart from the other competitors? Say that the cars sounded really similar. What would you do to make your car above and beyond, or place higher in the class?
That's a multifaceted question.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking it, because it could be very interesting.
So were lots of parts to the competition judging. But one of the things, you had a score sheet. Judges would score the car, between 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, whatever each of those little subcategories are. And most judges were pretty good about making notes. And so one of the most important things you needed to do would be you needed to know what the judges liked.
Absolutely.
So you need to know each judge.
I still have a stack this tall of, I don't know if it's every judging sheet that I ever had, but I think it probably is. And I can go in there and tell you what certain judges like. And I knew that if this judge was judging my class and they liked a little bit thicker base, a little thicker bottom end, then I knew that I could go in there and bump that up a little bit. If I knew that, or in my opinion, jokingly, that guy's half deaf, why is he even judging anyways? He needed a little more highs. I could go in there and turn that up a little bit. And with that being in mind, maybe I liked it with more higher frequencies than a judge did, so I knew I needed to turn it down to meet what he liked. So you really needed to be able to do your homework. No different than today, the guys judging today. But you need to know who your judges were, who they were going to be, and you can make some small adjustments. No difference than being a NASCAR driver and you're going to a different racetrack, and you need to make adjustments to your car to maximize that track. Or no different than Major League Baseball, knowing who the umpire is going to be that night on what pitches you're throwing, that type of deal.
You have to be aware also of if you let's say your stage width is sacrificed, but your image placement is pinpoint precise. If you're putting points on the score sheet, what's more important, 5, 10-point images or stage width worth 15 points overall? You're probably going to go for the imaging. And that's what a lot of guys are doing these days. They're sacrificing some of the stage to maximize points. That doesn't necessarily mean it's fun to listen to, or
it doesn't mean it's the best car that hit the streets. It's just
what they're doing to
score
maximize
sheet.
their points.
And there were tricks to do that, to be able to manipulate staging and imaging. And many times, you were sacrificing a calculated sacrifice, I think, is what you're looking at.
Yes, absolutely.
And to really just round out the score sheet, hit as many points as you can, and make the whole thing, as competitive as you can be. But I want to touch on a point that Gary made, about knowing the judges. That was part of our preparation. Is we spent a lot of time with judges. I mean, I did judges training, and I was head judge at the finals one year, and I think as a competitor, I would go out of my way to talk to judges, spend time with them, not just what they thought about your car, but what they thought about other people's cars, and listen to their cars. And we went as far as trying to make compensation for if a judge was really tall.
Or really short.
I think Gary could move the seats back in his car about 3 feet.
It's a long car.
Or really short.
Right.
And we know who we're talking about. Lots of love. And that made a big difference. You had to pay attention to these things, you know, and you had to know, you had to really. And Gary hit the nail on the head. I mean, you really have to know if there are certain things, certain areas that they really like, or something that really bothers them too, is just as important to know. And you got to respect the time that they put in doing this, because that's a tough gig, being a judge. And so spend time with them, ask them questions, you know, learn from them.
And quite often, a judge would get out of the vehicle and say, "Oh, you know, I heard this, and this sounded great, but I'm concerned about this." And they would say something about maybe the left side of the stage. So I'd get in and listen and go, "No." But then the next time I'd show up, I'd go, "Thank you for your inputs last time. I hope you enjoy it today." And it would magically sound better. You know, it's amazing how just little subtle things. I mean, always take the inputs, always take them, listen to them. If it makes sense, apply it. But, you know, I was one of those, I never made a change for a judge. I never adjusted my system for a particular judge. I tuned it to sound what I thought was best based on everybody's inputs, and I left it alone.
Yeah, I would make changes. Usually it was low frequency, you know, bass. You know, sometimes they wanted just more low end than
or the floor
whatever.
noise.
And sometimes the different shows were ridiculously loud.
I would make a valid change for that.
You know, I remember one of the last years of competing, being in Daytona, and my car was a show floor car, so it's on the show floor with all the crazy noise and everything in there. I mean, just unreal. And I'm being judged, and I'm thinking to myself, how can this be good? You know, and I mean, you know, just not possible. Yeah, so I would make little adjustments here and there, depending on who it was. And I would, like I said, I would know that certain judges liked the bass thin, and certain judges liked it thick, and
I like it.
So I would like it thick.
So speaking of transitions, John, I think it's important that we talk about KCG getting involved in SPL. You know, in the latter years, you know, it was really driving the market, and you know, it was a big challenge for us to you know,
we had a lot of
let's
heavy
turn our
hitters.
geek off a little bit and play in this field some. And that was a big challenge too. And
we had some competitors did well with it.
Well, we owned world records for a couple of years.
Greg
you know,
Welch,
Michael Hughes, and he just dominated. And
Corey Heimel did very well.
One point I want to make about Michael, before we prototyped a solo X, and Mark and I can talk about that because we worked on that project.
That was fun.
The original.
Michael won with stock gear, stock L7s, you know, just right off the shelf. And everybody, there was just this big conspiracy theory that we had made him special speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we did was, okay, we wanted to prove the point. We got tired of those rumors. So we pulled his van into Tweak and Tune with no woofers in it. And then we sent a pallet, we had a pallet shipped of woofers, and everybody saw us open the stock boxes, put the stock woofers in, and boom, world record. You know, so that was one of those times that was really remarkable. And so yeah, we had some quality competitors. You know, Greg Welch was another one that was a great teammate. Sadly passed on. I think his family's still involved in it. Did you tell me? Somebody told me that. I think.
His wife is still involved in audio.
Yeah. Well, you know,
with
parts
Jonathan
out to
from
her.
T3 Audio.
Yeah, they were. It was great. He was another, you know, really solid competitor, and there were many.
That was another one of those guys that, you know, if you had any problems, didn't matter who you were, he was there.
He was going to drop, you know, everything and help you.
And that van, I mean, with two of the original Solo X18s, I think, 171 or 173 on a B&K, and never burnt a coil, but he was actually shattering woofer cones.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of mass.
Redeveloped the woofer.
There was a lot of mass in that cone, and you know, a lot of force inside it. And you know, we did interesting things with SPL too. You know, we'll probably touch on the Alma thing here in a bit, but I remember when we took the Bronco down to UT, and we had the physics department.
Oh yeah.
We had the physics department from UT, we brought them out and invited them to check out what we were doing. And of course, they weren't really audio guys, they're physics guys. Of course, they had to know something about audio to do what they were doing, and that was the point of being there. But they were blown away with, you know, what we were doing in constructing, you know, the van and how we reinforce things and you know, doors that weigh 400 pounds and a windshield that's 3 inches thick. You know, that was a really interesting thing, and we did that, you know, for R&D support and to learn things. Another thing that we did early on is we would take an Audio Precision and go out in the field with SPL cars and run impedance curves on every individual woofer separately while we were hitting it and seeing how drivers behaved in different positions in the SPL environment. And, you know, that was really...
How they loaded up.
Yeah, that was really fascinating to see you know, the effects of the acoustical load on the front side of the cone and how they were different from one side to the next, and look at those
people talk about box rise all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's been one of those things that, you know, it's been kind of a buzzword, but you're not, you know, you're talking, you know, impedance rise due to just placement of the woofer in the enclosure in the vehicle. And
well, it was about learning, you know, what the interaction was, and that's where one of, I think, really important things with KCG was sharing information with R&D. It's just like the car builders do with racing, you know. They're heavily involved in it, to say the least, and so it was important to be able to share what we had learned, you know, and when it did come time to work on the original Solo X, we were doing some interesting things with measuring power compression. You know, it's one thing to see how efficient it was, or how, you know, but to see consistently how it could dissipate heat and perform consistently, you know, we made that something that we were paying attention to, and that directly influenced how the product was made. And so that was a really important part, I think, of what we were doing, and it was a really fun part because I got to spend a lot of time in R&D, and you know, Mark did too.
And that was so much fun, that big Crown Macrotech amplifier, and just taking those 10s and testing them to the limits.
Oh man!
Just to see what they would do. That was a hoot.
It was kind of like throwing a stick of dynamite over your shoulder to see what it blew up. You know? And we didn't have that, but you just didn't know what to expect. You know, the first couple of times you pulled the Frankenstein switch. You know. So that was cool, and that was a really important part of what we were doing. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. As Q guys getting into the SPL field. Yeah. You know, and.
But that's what this company did from the get-go. You know, I think really KICKER had, as far as I can remember, and somebody on the internet's going to dispute it, but the black Astrovan that we had in '88 with Ray Rayfield's Astrovan with 18s in it, 20,000 watts. And I think that was the first big factory van that was ever done. And we put that thing all over the country, you know, consistently. And so to the point, that was a real, even though KCG was really sound quality influenced from the beginning of the launch, you know, our roots went back to SPL. That's who we were. Excuse me. And so it was kind of a natural to get back into it, you know. And KICKER's Joe Gross. You know, I remember when Joe Gross competed, and you know, I'd go down to Shreveport and you know help him. And this is years before any of the IASCO or even USAC competitions were happening. So yeah, KICKER has deep roots in SPL, and it is an important part of what we did.
And obviously, we're dedicating more and more, you know, effort, energy with the new L7X woofers. Which, just a quick little story. I hope he doesn't shoot me for saying this, but it involves you. Just happened to be in R&D, walking through, and one of the guys that's had a very heavy hand in the L7X, Kyle Ambrose, said you bought him his very first beer ever at CES.
Yes!
That's another feather you can put in your hat.
I'd rather buy him his first than his last.
Yeah, it's funny because I was walking through, so I hear Greg's here. He's like, yeah, he bought me my first beer, you know, at CES. It's like, well, that's cool.
Oh, man. Now I'm going to get hit up for more beer from everybody. That's okay.
That's starting tonight.
Yeah.
After this. Adult beverages, round the horn.
Absolutely.
So you were sharing some numbers earlier, with just numbers of cars that went in and trophies that took, and you threw out something that just really caught me off guard, by just some of the trophies that team took that you guys put together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm humbled by it, to tell you the truth. I really am.
Well, you had good people, you had good products, and everybody pulled together.
And we had major support from Steve and Charlie and Jay and Steve, in that department. I mean, and obviously the tech and R&D guys. I mean, we didn't do anything by ourselves. This is a company effort, and there's no question about it. So.
Man, the backing we had. I mean, to come to work at Kicker and working with you on KCG and then eventually managing the tech department there.
Yeah.
But the support that was given.
Absolutely.
And, the people that come through, Steve would come down or, somebody would come down and check out what we're doing and say, hey, man, what are you doing here? Tell us about this. And the help we had from all you guys in the tech department at the time, Dan and Jay and Dave and everybody there, we'd get in a bind and it would be all hands on deck.
Absolutely.
I remember when we were getting ready to go out to Arizona for the Wild West shootout.
Oh yeah.
And I'm working on my car and you're working on your truck. Mm-hmm. And I remember we got Steve Irby down there working. Mm-hmm. Mr. Henderson was Gary Henderson was down there working.
Yep.
Just all the upper brass of the company was down there helping us on our cars. I mean, it was pretty awesome.
Tell them about that contest, because that was a big deal. I mean,
that was one I didn't go to. I went, but I didn't take my vehicle.
Wait, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. What was the one that was It was a lot of manufacturers involved. And
yeah,
you guys
so it was the
the
Wild West Shootout put on by Car Sound magazine, and you paid your entry fee, and it was a winner take all. And I don't know, it seems like it was a couple grand or something to enter.
I don't remember. But the trophy was a board with a gun on it. So.
Yeah, and I got it hanging up. So but yeah, so we had, everybody, it seemed like at Kicker that was down there helping us work on the cars, put them together. We'd both, just kind of undergone some big changes. And then finally it got down to like, all right, if we don't leave now, nobody's going to make it. And so your truck was far enough away that we swung by. I already had my clothes. We swung by your place and got clothes, and we hit the road. But yeah, it was my car, Steve Brown's BMW. Will Adcock had the Intrepid Reaper.
was Rockford and Focal.
Yeah, Rockford and Focal.
Phil Petrarca had his Mercedes. There was a couple other cars. I don't remember exactly who everybody was, but it was kind of a winner take all, and it was pretty cool. They the judging criteria was different than like the regular IASCA rules. They had kind of their own criteria that they put together, and it was during some kind of I don't know. There was some kind of big activities going on there, so there was crowd participation. So
it was on a baseball field.
It was on one of the baseball fields. We had to. We were all mic'd up and communicated to the crowd.
That's right.
Everything about our cars. We gave our presentation to the crowd, not just to the judge. So you had to be pretty tuned up on your presentation and all that good stuff. And,
that was a show where. The company's reputation was really on the line, and I remember coming back from that show and just going, "What are we going to do to top that?" Which that's the thing, that's the bad part about winning something is the next day you got to start over.
Yeah,
but we had a lot of shows like that.
Absolutely.
Though. Every time we went to Perry, every time we'd go to finals, every time we'd go to Steel Valley or whatever else. There's a lot. Reputation's riding.
You asked about some of the numbers and stuff. Ernie, do you have any of those graphics, or did you scan those?
No, we don't. Just
Oh man, you're gonna make me go old school here, you know?
We're all old school up here.
All this techno stuff you guys got, and I gotta hold up a magazine for crying out loud. So, here's some random ones. And this is cool because there's some listings here, but this directly impacted business for our dealers.
I'll hold one.
Yeah. Do you need to zoom in on this? Do you want me to walk up with it and 3D it for you? You're about 8 miles away. Really? Can you see that?
No, we got a good zoom.
Long lens.
Okay.
So let me read this off. This one is 2000 World Finals, and this one's USAC. Number 1 subwoofer brand used by world champions, KICKER. Number 1 amp brand, KICKER. Number 1 highs, KICKER. Number 1 mid-range, KICKER. Number 1 subwoofer used by USAC top 5 competitors, KICKER. I mean, on and on and on and on. So it's like that kind of stuff. And here's one for Iasca because, you know, it was never one-sided. So this is 99. And so I'm going to read these off because there's some core competitors in here. Marky Dietrich. Hey, buddy, I know you're probably out there. Best of Show finalist. And Frank Rougeau, Best of Show finalist. Mary Nash, Gary built that car, finalist. On and on and on and on and on. Best of Show, Gary Biggs. World champions, Mark Dietrich, Chuck Barbosa, Frank Rougeau, Gary Biggs, Rob Rice, Mary Nash, and Steve Tyler. This is the World Finals in 99. I think there was only one pro class that we didn't win. And that guy changed the tune the night before. I caught him. So I didn't feel bad for him. So, in retrospect, I think I can say that, you know, it was solid. Okay. And real proud of that. And, you know, there's lists like that from 95 on up, and
the list is going to get longer now.
Yeah, and you know, here's something else. I'm going to dig for this. You guys can talk amongst yourselves for a second.
All right.
After you get done showing this, we're going to break and take a couple viewer questions. I know there's some people
dying at
the keyboard.
Yeah, good.
I'm sure they got good questions for you guys that I haven't thought of yet, but I've got a few more we got to go over too before we get to my usual stuff.
Oh no. So.
All right, John, so what you got?
All right, while he's digging through that, I'm going to ask all three of you, what was your favorite vehicle out there that was not your own? Whose was it and what was it?
Oh,
favorite audio systems in car overall?
I would have to give you two of them.
Which is fine.
One was the Speakworks Grand National.
Yep.
When Richard owned it, you know, had made some changes to it, but that was the car. The first time I heard that, I sat in it with Ellen Threet, Manville Smith's wife.
I unfortunately never got to hear that car in person.
And I sat in with her. It was at an Autosound 2000 seminar, and I said, okay, I know the car sounds good, but can you teach me how to listen? And she spent about 30 minutes teaching me, and that car was unbelievable. From the passenger seat, sounded so good. That was the first one. The second one was Chad Klodner's Mustang.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that one.
For what it was, a 6-speaker system, just rocked my world. I met him the first time I heard the vehicle at a show in Plano, and I had the 4Runner with the horns coming out of the dash for the first time, and he changed the way I looked at car audio. I mean, that was huge.
Cool.
So, that car was really good.
It was so good.
Gary?
And now it's like 1,500 horsepower.
Just 1,500. That's small anymore. What was your favorite car?
You know, I think it's the same with a lot of guys from our era. The Speakerworks Grand National really it set the bar so high above everything else at the time. Mm-hmm. You got to keep in mind, up to a certain point, it was about let's try to stick as many speakers as we can in the doors and everywhere. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was nothing for a guy to have 3 or 4 component sets of MB cord or something in each door. So, naturally, you're listening to that car, all you could hear was that left door, or all you heard was the right door, you know what I mean? And guys were starting to play with center channels and stuff. And when those guys redid that Grand National and did the horns up front and created one of the very first ever real front
stage,
sound stage cars, two-seat car
that would
with
do
a front
140
sound
decibels.
stage that would rip your ears off if you wick the volume up, and it was just such a great. To me at the time, I was like, man, if Buick was to do a high-end audio system, this is kind of what it would look like. It wasn't the standard big woofer box hanging out in the trunk and all that kind of stuff.
Tell the guys, in case you don't know what the car was, it's just the basic construction of the vehicle without getting into all the details, but it was very simple.
Very simple. An 87 Buick Regal Grand National. Had custom horns under the dash, some large format mid bass drivers in the rear sides, and then 15s or 18s? 15s, aperiodic free air
pretty much
in the
six
trunk.
Speakers.
Yep. 6 speakers, lots of amplification, but it was the first time anybody had ever done something like that, and it was just light years. It's everybody else is riding their bike around the block, and these guys are going to the moon, literally. So that car was just amazing. It blew me away the first time I saw it. That was the reason that I wanted a Buick Regal. Obviously I'm a young guy. I can't afford a Grand National, but I had a good buddy of mine, one of my best friends at the time. He was best man in my wedding. He had the Buick that I have, and I bought it from him, and I did the best I could, early on to kind of replicate that car, and I still think it's one of the best formats to put an audio system in that there is. It's a big.
I think one of the neatest things about your Buick was the bass up front.
Yeah.
Which is something you don't see in a lot of cars. I mean, it was just.
And I had that woofer hit up front for several years before anybody even knew. It never was a part of my install presentation or nothing.
Tell them where it was.
It was where the heater core used to be. So earlier I mentioned that I had this system in my car and it got stolen. And the guys that stole the car stripped it. When I got the car back, I literally made several trips back and forth from Texas to Tulsa, doing some stuff for Crime Stoppers, and they found the guys that did it. But when I got it back, it was stripped. And when I say stripped, I mean no doors, no hood, no fenders, zero interior, engine gone, all the audio system was gone. And they literally, at the salvage yard, they scooped that thing up on forklift and set it on a trailer, and I put tie-down straps around it and headed back to Texas. Well, and I unloaded it on the side of my house. And keep in mind, I had a pretty good built 350 motor in it, and I had nitrous on it. And I couldn't.
You need that in audio.
You got to have it on there. And so the shop that I worked at was 1 block from McDonald's. And I couldn't even leave the shop without hitting the nitrous for that one city block. I mean, my goal was to leave black marks from stoplight to stoplight. And so we also had our own little midnight drag thing out on the southwest side of Wichita Falls.
Pre-405.
And so we would race from, we had a set of railroad tracks, and then we had an 1/8 mile mark where we painted some lines, white lines on the road. And so that was our little racetrack. And so the group of us, we raced it. We had a lot of fun. And so everybody saw my car on the side of my house stripped. It looked like it was kind of wrecked. And so everybody thought I had, smashed up the car racing or something. So when I started rebuilding the car, one of the guys I worked with made a joke. He goes, "Man, you ought to just put a woofer up there where the heater box was." And I thought, "Man, you are a genius." Genius. So I did it. And it was...
And there you can see it.
There's a picture on the screen of it. It didn't start out like that. It started out as the original heater core box, and I made it look like the original box. Even the wires that would have gone to the blower motor were the speaker wires for the woofer.
Nice.
And so it was
those type of details that help your score too.
Well, no, so at that time it was top secret. I didn't tell the judges or nobody about it. And then finally, I let the cat out of the bag. I did a plexi window on top of it so you could see in. We had just came out with the Chrome Anniversary Solar Barracks, 25th anniversary woofer. So I installed I think that was really the reason.
Was it this car or after?
Yep, that right there.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that I did the plexi windows, because we launched the Wii.
Yeah.
I felt like I was
part of the launch.
You were.
So we had this, the Chrome Solar Barracks. So I made that window so that you could see inside and everything. And then eventually, I don't remember exactly why. Greg held up that picture of the car when it was white with a burgundy interior, and
this is the first iteration, or second.
Yeah, one of the first
really early ones.
Early Kicker.
This
versions.
is the one that went to Perry and cleaned everybody's clock.
Yeah,
first time.
So we were at finals that year, and I don't remember. I can see his face. I can't remember his name. I think he was a Canadian judge. He said something to me, and it was kind of a joke, but he was like, "Man, I'm tired of seeing this car," or something like that. And I thought, all right. So went home and tore the car apart. And I mean, we did a frame off restoration on it, painted the frame. That's when the car became orange. Did the new motor, stroker motor, and everything, and barely got it done for finals in Oklahoma City the following.
That was such a headache for me.
And I remember we held extra contests at our shop just so that I could get the points, because we had,
Nice.
There was nothing given. You had to earn the points.
You had to earn your way to finals.
And
that's true.
I remember one of the judges, James Feltenberger, whenever I pulled the car across the street and he went to get in, his eyes were like flying saucers. He was like, "What in the world
what is this sick stuff?"
Because there was no interior. There was a radio laying, between the seat. I had one speaker magnet stuck to the transmission, but it was all, I was like, I don't care. I just need a few points. Anything happens. And so it was a thrash getting that car,
Participation points.
getting that car put back together and everything for finals. That was just, a couple months later. But that's when the car got totally transformed. And
I think that sub enclosure weighed 150 pounds. It was like jacking a transmission up there.
Yeah, so that started out with a piece of 1/2-inch thick aluminum that I took the heater core and I bolted it to a piece of aluminum, and I used a router and I trimmed the piece of aluminum the size, the footprint of the heater core, and drilled the holes. And so it's bolted in. To this day, it's bolted into the factory holes that would have held the AC heater box in. And then I took a beach ball from Walmart and I stuck on there, super glued it on, and I stretched fleece across it and resined it up, cut the hole out on the other side, and then at that time in history, I would mix up fiberglass resin, milled fiber, some sand, lead buckshot, anything I could think of that was strong and heavy. And dense. So I turned that thing up and I filled it about 3 inches full of that milkshake mix. And then the next day I turned it on its side and did it again. So there's actually a 12 by 12 by 12 square box inside that big round thing. And I should have weighed it, but it takes two guys to get it in and out. It's massive, it's heavy duty.
No resonance.
No resonance. I mean, it's just ridiculous. That thing I can run any test tone through it, and on the outside, you can put your hand on the box and you don't feel it vibrating or resonating. I mean, it's just ridiculously strong. But everything I did with the car at that time was like that. Talking to Mark, getting ideas from Mark, and everything that Mark anybody that doesn't know Mark, I'll tell you a little bit about Mark. if building something 2 inches thick is way stronger than it needs to be, Mark will build it 4 inches thick.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah, we do.
And so I took advice from Mark and stuff, and everything Mark said. I tried to. I'm gonna outdo this guy. I ain't gonna let him, tell me I'm gonna do it stronger than him.
nobody's ever going to outdo your Bronco doors.
That's
solid
probably true.
concrete. Oh my God.
While we're talking about your car, was that the first time that you did the tub and the trunk? Was that iteration?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to tell a little story about that. So Gary created a one-piece fiberglass trunk, and you could probably see it in the magazine. Most of you have probably seen it.
I think
And
we had pictures of it.
It was amazing. I was there the night that he was pouring glass, and he said, "Man, I got an idea." And was it clothespins or something? I can't remember. We went all around the edge of the trunk, and that was right before you poured it. So he pours it, it turns out, gets the paint, it's beautiful. So, being the leader that he was, everybody else that was an installer in the shop, well, they wanted to tub their trunk too, So, we're getting ready before finals. Gary has this tub trunk, and we're spending thousands of hours tuning in the now un-air-conditioned car. And one of his young proteges came up and said, "Hey, Biggs, I've been working on tubbing my trunk. I want you to come out and see it." So I thought, oh man, that's pretty industrious of this guy. Take it upon. He's a young kid. I can't remember his name. Gary probably does. And so we went out and we looked at it. And he goes, "What? There's this one part where it's off a little bit. You know how to fix this?" And Gary goes, "Yes. I'll be right back." He goes into the shop. He gets a mini sledgehammer and smashes the things to bits. And you could just see this guy's face melt in He said, "I'm doing you a favor. It was never going to be right." It's like, oh, what a taskmaster.
Well, so let me back up to a story years and years and years before that. And so I've always felt like I'm a pretty good fabricator, installer. And one of the things that helped me, in my mind, learn to do things cool or right or make it look like they belong or something like that goes all the way back to the summer of 1987. I've got a Mustang. It's right before I got the Regal. Still had my Mustang. And I'm hanging out at a family friend that had a upholstery shop, Cleland's Upholstery, down in Lawton, Oklahoma. And so I'm hanging out there. I got several buddies that work there. Cleland was a childhood friend of my dad's.
What was his name again?
Cleland.
His name was Cleland in Oklahoma, just for the record.
Really cool guy. He had an upholstery shop, and man, in my mind, this guy was the greatest. I mean, he did great jobs. And so he upholsters the seats in my car. They look great. A couple of the other guys, we did the carpet in the Mustang, and it was great. And then I started building a amp rack in the subsystem in the back. And I've showed pictures on Facebook and stuff. I had this motorized amp rack that moved up and out of this thing. And this is pretty... In my opinion, I had never seen anything motorized. This is the summer of 1987, keep in mind. I'd never seen anything motorized before. And I built this thing that motorized up and down, and it motorized not with a linear actuator or nothing, but with a Sears cordless drill. And I backstrapped that thing into the bottom of the spare tire well, and I had a piece of all thread that went up with a bolt on the bottom of that amp rack. So when it tightened, it pulled it down, and when it loosened, it pushed it up. So it was super cool. But the original amp rack, when I was building it, I got it all built, and I walked over to Cleland, and I said, "Hey, would you help me cover this?" And he looked at it, and he's got this grin on his face. I can see it still today. And so he looks at it. I mean, he spent a good 5 minutes turning this thing around. And then he gets up and he walks outside and he smashes it.
Shut up.
No, he goes, "Lesson learned here. Don't ever build something you can't cover yourself." The biggest lesson I've ever learned in anything to do with cars. And so, throughout history, I've felt that it was my duty, my called duty, to share that wisdom with other fabricators.
Well, JW, do we have some questions for these guys? I know they've probably been stacking up. We're running a little long, which I knew we would. These guys are just so much fun to talk to and go back to the old days. So we've got Living Loud with Andy, good old Andy McGill. In your opinion, other than dedication and time, what really separated Kicker equipment from the rest?
It worked.
Reliability.
Reliability. You know, the amplifiers were quiet. They took a small electrical signal, made it bigger, and sent it to the speakers without getting in the way. Okay? There was plenty of power. No turn-on, turn-off noise. You know, it's the simple things done right that allowed the product to work.
Starting with SI amps, then the SS, then the ZR. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's not forget about bass. This company was founded on bass, and Kicker woofers are just bulletproof. I'm pretty confident they were used to design. I know for a fact several other companies had bought them and were testing them, using them, as reference goals.
We've been known to do that ourselves.
Yeah, of course, that's part of the business. But I think that's another big part of it.
Mark and I actually were talking about that on the way over, driving over today, and the consensus was we had really good product that just didn't get in the way of the music.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was reliable. It didn't break.
Sounded good.
It made it easier. We didn't have to fight the equipment to make it sound good. That's absolutely key.
What else we got, JW? PJ Dooley says, question for you guys. What's your favorite track to test systems with?
Ooh, that's a great question.
And I think, Mark, you said you've got like 15 that you use.
Well, I've got
you gotta have a favorite.
Well, okay.
A go-to.
My favorite track to have fun with when I know it's going to sound good, Money for Nothing.
Dire Straits.
Because it's aggressive, it's recorded well. If you have a system that can play loud and not fall apart, it's not a sound quality track necessarily. You're not going to pick out images. But you get that track on a system that sounds good and you crank it up and it's just like,
if your system can handle that track at fairly high volume,
at Harry Kimura volume,
without breaking, then you're headed down the right path.
That's a great track, but I will point out it is highly produced.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And you have to know that going into that track, and I think for all of us, I don't know if I could pinpoint one track. There are a lot of tracks that I use for different things, big band stuff for dynamics,
and real instruments.
Acoustic piano, a well-recorded acoustic piano is critical. Female vocals are critical.
Stand-up bass.
Stand-up bass is critical.
Drum set with no compression on it.
You could do yourself a big favor if you really want to train your ears and you want to. One thing you can do is you can pinpoint some of the great production companies or record labels, Chesky, Sheffield, Reference. And you make yourself aware of some of those, and especially if you're listening to female vocal with piano, stand-up bass, you're covering a lot of bases. So, and you know what? Listen to some of them, pick a few. You're going to get sick of them if you're going to use them to evaluate systems, but that's okay because they become tools in your arsenal. But I think it takes more than one track usually to tune a whole system.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can't do it all with one.
Yeah, there was a Sarah Kay track on the Hobo record that I used to. That was one track that was just covered a lot of ground. But you listen to Holly Cole and Rebecca Pidgeon and a lot of those chick singers with a jazz quartet around them. That's very revealing.
Auld Lang Syne, Rebecca Pidgeon, Too Rich for My Blood, Patricia Barber.
Yeah, Patricia Barber, oh my God.
Claire Marlowe, a lot of stuff, her stuff off of Let It Go. Male vocals, Aaron Neville. I Bid You Good Night is one of my favorite tracks of all time.
Yeah, I met Aaron, so I know what his voice sounds like.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yep.
Jeremy, what else we got up there? Getting close. We're going to be doing some giveaways here in about 7 minutes. So, out of all the Kicker sub lineup, then and now, which is your favorite and why? 25 Hertz to Life asks.
What was the last thing you said?
What is your favorite and why?
Your Kicker.
25 Hertz to
favorite
Life is
Kicker
one of our
sub.
viewers.
Oh, okay.
Man,
I like the Alma Gates woofer.
That was a very application-specific woofer. Yeah.
Man, I always like large woofers. One of my favorite. We talked about earlier. I think you asked about different installs or whatever. At one time, I had a pair of Kicker 18s in the trunk. In a free air aperiodic type install, and the C18s, and man, to this day, anytime I think about redoing the car or anything like that, that image comes into my mind with those 18s.
That woofer
mounted
was
back
brutal because it was musical. We built. It's a long time ago, but we built a Ford Taurus of all cars. And we put an 18 firing through the back's armrest. And it was brutal. It wasn't just loud. It just had guts. It'd go deep. It was manageable box size. That was a phenomenal woofer.
Mm-hmm. I know, Greg, you haven't been here for a while. I don't know if you've been up to the museum and seen the little Trabant. We got a little East German Trabant, which was Jan's competition car.
Oh, I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, it's actually in the museum. It's got a pair of C18s in the trunk of that Trabant.
There you go.
That is the trunk. I mean, that is pretty much it.
There you go.
But that's really cool. So, all right, we got at least time for one more question, Jeremy. If you got one pulled up. And if not, we got a long one here. Fred Swain says, Greg, here you go. The story about Earl's amp going out, I'm the one that came over and told you we had a problem. It was the audio design crew from Houston. Matt was freaking out trying to fix it and came over to you in basically a desperation move. I've still got the pictures of the trophy presentations with Earl, Rob, and Gary. Well, that is pretty cool.
That is awesome. Thank you for not only sending that in, but for watching. That was, as I said earlier, that was a moment. I'm so glad you were there. And somebody verified my big, tall tail. I mean, what more can you ask for? It's pretty great.
We know you're not lying, Greg.
Time.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you guys a couple more questions before we get to the giveaways.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Where do you think the competition is going? I mean, we've seen the evolution this far. I mean, where can we go from here?
Well, go ahead, Mark. You had something to say.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of classes I'm teaching. A large number of the people that come to the class are competitors because they want to make their car sound better. Something that Manville Smith said a number of years ago, he said competition has to die before it can come back. And he was right. And it is coming back.
Yep.
We've got a core group of competitors, and some of the manufacturer support is out there, and you've got guys working to make their cars sound better and do some quality installs. It's growing again. It's nice to go to some of these bigger shows. The Mobile Toys down in College Station, the Aggieland Invitational, and the Lone Star Shootout, and Steel Valley Regional, Larry Chisner's been doing, and some of the others. There are some real shows out there. And I think with the organizations, IASCA in particular, is really restructuring the rules, and they're bringing two-seat back into the fold, and they're going to make it grow. I don't know that we'll get back to 435 cars at finals, but man, it's refreshing to have the competitors and the enthusiasm, and
I love the creativity.
To be part of it, yes.
To see that, different, treatments people are doing to audio systems, and And I know that was part of the old competition to get extra points for doing other things. Like, Gary, you said you had a stroker motor in your car. Remember we put the little turbo engine in the Forerunner. I mean, just anything you can do to get a point. And I remember it was you were scratching for points, and a couple points could make all the difference.
Well, and at a certain level, every point you spent a couple grand to get that point.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the things.
Diminishing returns, we call that.
Back then, there was a maximum of 30 creativity points on the score sheet. Yeah. And I think one show I got 27 points, and I never got any more than that. And then they changed it to upgrade points, where if you just change the screws, you got a point, and that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that kind of takes the creativity out of it at that point.
Well, I think to answer the viewer's question a little bit too, and build on Mark's point is, everybody that was involved in that era of car audio was having to reinvent the wheel. Or invent the wheel. Mm-hmm. We had to really do a lot of analysis, a lot of study to overcome the acoustic environment, make things work in that. And with some of the application-specific tools that are becoming available vis-a-vis DSP and some other,
some of the analyzers,
some of signal manipulation equiment,
JLMax, I think.
Yeah, well, and the piece you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that, and where it's going is, this could make it more engaging for people to be involved in not just doing two seats, but just to doing really good sounding cars. And that's what we want Kicker and all car audio enthusiasts doing, is making good sounding cars and having fun. I mean, man, we didn't get in this not to do both of those things.
Right. Yeah, it's all about the sound. And, with the new analyzers and stuff, absolutely critical. They changed a lot of the ways that I tune a car from beginning to end, and they streamlined it quite a bit. But please, everybody understand, the analyzers are great, but if you don't install the speakers properly and you don't handle the mechanical part and the acoustical part, once the sound leaves the speaker, it's at the mercy of the acoustical environment. And you have to install stuff properly, even with these analyzers. You just can't rely on the electronics to correct for an improper install.
All right. I know we're about 30 minutes over. We still got a few other things to do. Man, I wish we could just keep doing this. We're going to have a part 2 of this at some point. And Greg, will have to get you back over here at some point.
Oh, man.
These guys are easier to get because they're in Oklahoma.
You just shut off the feed, and we'll just keep going for a second show.
Just keep recording it. I'd love to do that. But there's a couple other things I always do at the end of the shows. We got some fails. Well, I want to do the fails real quick, because this is amazing. You talk about doing things right. Jason Stewart sent this to me this afternoon. And Ernie, if you pull up my laptop really quick, we're just going to step through these. This is one install that he got in. He just sent these pictures today. We talk about bad connections on the battery. I mean, all the connections on the battery. Whoop, actually, I jumped past another. Then we look at where's the fuse. This is all the same vehicle. It's just run right through the door jam. So let's keep going. There's the ground, and that's the fold-down portion of the back of the seat. The speaker wire also run through the door jamb.
Was this Superman's car?
Yeah, it might be. It may have been. Of course, there's some type of weird switch. Looks like masking tape or medical tape around. I don't know if that's the turn-on, turn-off. The line output converter, just a ball of mess, and it doesn't get any better. And even when you get to the enclosure, caulking, literally just white caulking, and even on the speaker side. So, and of course, all the wires just run across the top of the floor in the back seat, so there's no chance you're going to trip over those. So, thank you, Jason, for sending those. Just awful.
Send that guy a fire extinguisher, would you?
Yeah, unfortunately, Jason was going to send me pictures of what he did to clean it all up and get it working safely. We're not going to go into those right now because we're really running short on time. But what we want to do now is we probably want to give some stuff away. Yeah. So I know we talked about the cool stuff we give away. So I know Bill up on the screen is going to display the third place winner, which is going to get the BF100, which is that little Bluetooth speaker, the Kicker koozie, and the UnMasked t-shirt. Bill, who is the third place winner of the evening? That is going to be Ashley B. from Minnesota.
All right, Ashley.
Ashley, good job.
That is awesome. So third place winner. Now, we had talked about earlier in the night, the grand prize winner was going to get that really cool satin jacket. We're going to give that to the grand prize winner. And actually, I think I said it wrong. The third place winner is going to get the tumbler. So you don't get the bullfrog. Sorry, I got all excited, got backwards. You're going to get the tumbler. You're going to get the T-shirt. You're going to get the koozie. Second prize winner is going to get the EB400 earbuds, and you're going to get that black satin jacket, which that really is a cool jacket. I don't want to give it up. So second place winner is going to be Gary. Why don't you go ahead and read it since I probably can't.
John P. from Texas.
Tejas.
All right, John.
Watch for an email from Bill Frog,
right.
your name, your address, your phone number, your shirt size, and all that good stuff. So we got another special prize that we're going to add to the grand prize winner, which is going to get the Kicker Bullfrog. And Gary, why don't you hold this up and tell them what this is. Greg, tell them what they're looking at right here, because this was a really, really special
This was a really important part of, having a team is...
Yeah, turn it around.
All the team members got great jackets and great shirts, and our ad department was very cooperative in helping us, and so we sourced these and we made sure that everybody that was on the team got that jacket. And if they won the World Finals, I think they got one of those.
What year was that?
1996.
Do you remember whose jacket that was?
I don't.
We don't either. We thought maybe you might know for sure. We didn't know where it came from. I don't anyway. But
no, I did bring mine to donate to the museum, though.
Well,
so
that is awesome. Yeah, this was a really, really special jacket. And what's really special about that particular jacket, the little moisture thing is still in the pocket. This is brand new.
Oh, wow.
This has never been given to anyone. As far as I know, it's never been worn. That's why I didn't put it on earlier. So this is going to be part of the grand prize with the BF100, with the Kicker koozie and the UnMasked T-shirt. And Greg, since you kind of started this whole thing, and thank you for doing so, and thank you guys for being part of the show and coming back.
You bet. Thanks for having us out.
It's so much fun to hang around with old friends and talk old war stories, and we got to do this again.
Man, this is just so great being back in Stillwater, and thank all the guys, and big thanks to Steve Irby for supporting us through the years and being a great employer and a great friend. What a class act. So we're going to give this away.
We're going to give this away the grand prize winner. Greg, why don't you go ahead and read who that is? And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Without your support, we couldn't do this either.
Don W. from Oregon.
Nice.
All right.
That's right up there where Jeff Smith lives now.
Yes, as a matter of fact, do not let Jeff Smith have that jacket. He's got one already.
Yeah, he's probably got one, but I bet he doesn't
I bet he's got a couple of them.
Probably doesn't fit
that was kind of
Jeff. We know how that works. Guys, thank you for hanging out with us. We ran a little long, but I warned you in the beginning. I knew we were going to. It was really hard to even cut it off at this point. But yeah, keep the questions coming in.
Uh-oh.
Pardon?
One more.
Contest, John.
What, you talking about the GP audio contest?
The amp, the one to run until July.
What?
Oh, well, pull that up. Yes, we've got a whole nother contest we're running.
Are you slacking, John?
Well, yeah, you know, I don't always have my notes in front of me. So that's the GP audio box, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, we mentioned that earlier in the show. We're giving away another contest that started at 6 minutes ago. That was for the GP Audio True Spec Elite enclosure with the Solo X 12-inch woofer that was tested by Derek Williston. It was also signed by Steve Irby front and back. And I think they just mentioned we're going to give you a CXA 1801 and a wire kit with that.
Whoa.
So that's going to go until July 10th at midnight. You have to register for that one. So tune in often, register often, and come back and see us again in 2 weeks, and we're going to have another great show for you guys.
Actually, we're doing a show next week, and then we're going to skip July 4th and kick it off again.
See, I'm learning stuff as we go.
It's the voice from the back of the hall.
So maybe I missed that meeting. So we're going to be back next week, but July 4th weekend, we will be taking a vacation. Thanks to my three awesome guests. You got Greg Davis, Mark Eldridge, and Gary Biggs, my great friends, and just true leaders in the industry, and such a pleasure to have all these guys on stage. Thanks again. Have a great Tuesday evening. Stay tuned for Living Loud with Andy, and if you're not a member of the Kicker Club, sign up on Facebook. It's well worth it.
Thanks, y'all. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
See y'all.